work here at PDFTron on the marketing team. I'll be the webinar host today, communicating with you in the chat and comment sections on the right-hand side of your screen. If you have any questions, please type them out in the questions tab, and Aaron will try to get to as many as he can. There will be a designated question period at the end of the webinar. But if your question isn't answered today, don't worry, we'll also be following up with you after so we can address it then. And as a thank you for attending, we're offering a tech consultation to the first 5 people that raise their hands. So basically, Aaron and his team will assess your organization's tech stack, your needs, your desired outcomes, and potential growth areas when it comes to documents, and make recommendations to help shape the future of your technology. So let us know in the chat or comment section if that's something that would be valuable for your organization. Someone will be reaching out to you after the session to make arrangements, and we are just limiting that to the first 5 people. So our speaker today is Aaron Gravesdale, a seasoned vet here at PDFTron. He leads our solution engineering team and has more than 15 years experience developing, architecting solutions in document management and PDF technologies. He has worked directly with a full spectrum of customers and designed solutions based around PDFTron's toolset. He lives in Vancouver with his partner and dog Kaufman and enjoys exploring the outdoors when it's not too rainy. Aaron, the floor is yours.
Okay, great. Thanks, Nick. Basically what I'll be doing today is just kind of giving an introduction to PDFTron's technology and how you can go about getting started with it in your environment. Special emphasis will be made on a web viewer because we have some very nice, easy to show demos. It's very easy to get started trying out WebViewer just by opening up a browser and going to our site. What I'll do is just be kind of walking through our live demo there, just to give you a better idea of how the technology works and what different features are available and so on. As Nick mentioned, you can feel free to post up questions within the webinar software, and as well there's a poll where you can go and vote on which topics you'd like me to focus on the most. We'll see if we can get to each of these throughout this webinar, but based on questions and so on, we might have to kind of prioritize topics. So please feel free to go over into the poll section and vote on what you'd like to see most focus on. So just as a way of getting started, what I'd like to do is just kind of talk about PDFTron as a company, just as a bit of background, so you have some idea of where our organization comes from and what we offer. PDFTron was actually founded a couple of decades ago, in the late 90s, around the time that the PDF specification was first published. And our initial offering, which we still provide, is called PDFTron PDF SDK. Initially, it was a toolkit that we just developed for Windows, but then ported over to other platforms like Linux and Mac OS, as well as to mobile platforms like iOS and Android, UWP as well, the Windows mobile platform. And a few years back, what we did was we ported that over to the web. So essentially compiling that native toolkit over to JavaScript. And over the last couple of decades, we've really added quite a lot of functionality into that toolkit. So it's really covering the entire document lifecycle. So that starts from, the document's creation, whether that means, creating a new document like a PDF from scratch, or by converting from some other format like HTML or an image or a Word document. We have a lot of technology around kind of the manipulation and improvement of documents. So things like maybe merging 2 different PDF documents together, or taking an image and OCRing it and creating a searchable PDF out of that. Doing things like optimizing a document to make it smaller in size, or flattening it to make it less complex. Then, in sort of the everyday kind of grown-up stage of the document lifecycle, we have a lot of technology around sort of using documents interactively, so bringing up viewers, scrolling through them and zooming and panning, searching for text within a document, adding annotations, doing things like adding comments to the document, filling out forms and digitally signing PDF documents. And then we have sort of a lot of technology around kind of the end stage of that document lifecycle as well. So doing things like, say, converting to PDF-A for archiving. If you wanted to take a document that was, a fillable, annotatable PDF and kind of, maybe lock it down a bit more for long-term storage. Things like redacting, personally identifying information from a document so that you can publish it to a wider audience, digitally signing files, like I mentioned before, but you can do things as well, like add a certification signature so that you can automatically detect whether a document has been modified after having been signed. So all of these sorts of things that can be done to kind of lock down the document at the end stages of its life cycle. And so again, over the last couple of decades, we've really added in a lot of this kind of functionality into our toolkit. And by compiling that over to the web, that means that we can make all of that full document lifecycle functionality available within the browser. And because what we've done is compiled it to JavaScript, that means that you can run entirely inside of the browser without having to necessarily offload anything to a server-side component, and without the user having to install anything native. So you don't have to install any native plugins like you might remember doing in the past with Chrome or Firefox, and you don't have to install any native desktop software either, since it's just JavaScript. It's running inside of the browser. We're also we have support in for Pinnacle and WebAssembly so that we can get very fast execution within the browser, despite performing heavy-duty tasks like PDF rendering. So what I'm going to be doing, again, in this webinar is kind of going over our demo. And you can get to that yourself by going to pdftron.com with whatever browser you'd like, and then go to Documentation, Web, and Launch Demo. And that will bring up our live demo here. There's a lot of other interesting stuff under that same menu, though, that I just kind of wanted to point out just so that you're aware of it. So if you go to Documentation, Web, and then Overview instead of Launch Demo, then that will bring you to the WebViewer Overview page. There's actually a link to the demo from there as well. But it also has a lot of interesting stuff over here on the left. So for example, we have this Getting Started guide here that kind of has a lot of different ways of getting started with WebViewer and setting it up inside of your own environment. What we found talking to customers is that sometimes people will set things up from scratch, and we do have some steps for how to do that. For example, we have pre-built samples that you can run with just a couple of lines of code that leverage Node if you happen to have that in your stack, but that's not necessary to try out WebViewer, just as sort of an easy way of getting going. But if you have some other frameworks or platforms that you're integrating with, we have guides around each of those as well. So if you happen to be using React or Angular or wanting to integrate to Salesforce or SharePoint, we have these kinds of step-by-step guides as well as videos walking through how to do so. And let's say, if you're integrating into React, if you have an existing project or a new project, we have guides around each of those. So, if you want to take WebViewer and integrate it to something you've already developed, that's doable. Or, if you're just starting something from scratch, we have guides there as well. And then beyond just setting WebViewer up, we have detailed guides around kind of each of the major use cases that one might want to address with our toolkit. High-level things like dealing with PDF forms or generating documents from scratch or setting up collaboration. All of these things we have kind of high-level guides describing how to go about doing. We also have download links for not just WebViewer, but our other toolkits as well. And these downloads here are our full production builds of our toolkits. So for WebViewer or our native PDFTron SDK, if you're downloading them and trying them out, that's the actual build that you would use in production. It's just that prior to licensing, it runs inside of demo mode. What that means is that all functionality is available to you, but there's just a watermark that's sometimes appended to output. So I thought I might just jump into a couple of questions that have popped up here. So someone was asking about Salesforce, and we do indeed have integration with Salesforce. So you can bring up WebViewer inside of your Salesforce instance, grab documents from inside of a Salesforce database, and show it directly inside of the browser. So we're quite well integrated into Salesforce, and we are able to package WebViewer to be compatible with its requirements. Another question was what frameworks work best with PDFTron in terms of performance. And I think the framework that WebViewer is embedded in really shouldn't matter in terms of performance. We're able to integrate WebViewer in with Salesforce and React and Angular and all of those different popular frameworks, Vue, Node.js, Blazor. We're compatible with all of those. And so really, it's just a matter of getting the WebViewer JavaScript code up and running within those frameworks. Since we're running client-side inside of the web browser, it's really more about making sure that we're up and running inside of that particular browser rather than being constrained by a particular framework. Let's see, and somebody else was asking about, can you discuss integration with signing solutions and workflows there? And absolutely, we can talk a lot about digital signatures. I don't know if you may have had a chance to vote for that inside of the poll here, but yeah, please feel free to vote for particular subjects to discuss in more detail. Someone was asking if they get this application set up in their dev site, will it not affect others? And so I'm not exactly sure what's being asked there, but if you're downloading WebViewer and integrating it into a site, it runs completely within the client-side browser because it's pure JavaScript code. So it's not calling out to any third-party servers or anything like that. And we can actually see that from inside of the demo here. So if we just go to pdftron.com/webviewer/demo, what that does is bring up a WebViewer instance and brings up this sample document inside of it. And what's going on here is that this is a PDF that we're hosting from our servers, but it could be reading that PDF document from anywhere. We're able to load documents from REST APIs or from local file systems or by URL, which is sort of the recommended approach. But we're able to load from lots of different sources. And what happens is WebViewer downloads the bytes of the PDF and renders that directly inside of the browser here. So what we're not doing is what some other solutions do, which is to rely on an external server to do the rendering, and then maybe send an image down to the browser and then display an image of the document instead of doing the rendering in the client side. And that's kind of an easy approach. It's an approach that gets results very quickly, but there are some downsides to that approach as well. If you're performing rendering on a server and then sending an image back to the client, that's a lot of data to work with. Creating a large image on a server can be quite CPU and memory intensive. And then if you need to send a detailed image down to the client, something fine-grained enough to read small text like we have here, then you might have to send quite a lot of detailed, fine-grained image data down to the browser. But if you're just downloading a PDF copy, that often is going to be much smaller because it's going to contain text and vector data and isn't just going to be one giant detailed image. So as a result, you're saving quite a bit on network traffic by sending just the PDF bytes down to the browser instead of a very detailed image. And you're doing that hard work of rendering the document here inside of the client-side browser instead of taxing a server. And that means overall, the solution scales very naturally. As you add more users, and therefore need to add more rendering resources. If all of that happens client-side, then you're just naturally adding more computing power to the system to perform that rendering. You're not having to allocate new servers from your own server environment to make up for that need for new CPU rendering power. That all happens within the client side. So it makes a very natural scalability happen within the system. As users need more documents rendered, those computing resources are just added by those users rather than you having to requisition and pay for them. So let's see here. Just checking on some of these polls and questions. So yeah, feel free to vote inside of the poll there. We had a question here. Doing the rendering on the client requires a fair bit of resource on the client. What PDF features are most likely to cause performance issues inside of WebViewer? And I think the concern there is mostly around rendering resources that might take up a bit of work within the client-side browser. And if you'd like to mitigate that, we have some ways of doing so. So, for example, if you have a document with lots of content on it that might take a while rendering, and you can see this just when loading up a desktop viewer with some complex documents. If they seem like they take a long time to render with other viewers, that may be the case with PDFTron's viewer as well. So what I'd recommend doing there is using some of our components to optimize documents before showing them inside of WebViewer. We have some guides around that here inside of the WebViewer guides. So we have some ways of optimizing files to make them quick to view. Here are our viewer optimized format. And essentially what that will do is make it so that users can instantly see the rendered content of the document here in the browser. And we also have a server-side component called WebViewer Server that's optional. You absolutely don't have to run it, but what it can do is perform that optimization on documents and then send them down to the client-side browser to actually perform the rendering. It can also do things like convert from a variety of file types into PDF so that you don't have to set up that kind of conversion queue yourself on your own servers. So, and someone was asking whether that entails linearization, and that's absolutely correct. So when we're optimizing documents, we will typically linearize them, which is a technique for making them easier to render overall. Basically, what linearization will do is group the bytes of the PDF by page, so that the bytes for the first page, whatever is needed for rendering that first page, whatever images or text or vector data is needed, those are all grouped together at the beginning of the file, and then so on with the second page and the third page and so on. A bit like how video files are organized, where the first frames are at the beginning of the file and subsequently throughout, so that you can stream the video down to your client machine and start playing it. So a very similar thing is taken advantage of with PDF rendering as well, with linearized documents. So we can for very large documents, kind of stream them down. So for example, this 13,000 page document, we're able to start rendering that first page right away because this document is linearized. And what that means also is that we can kind of jump to random pages inside of the document and have those show up right away as well. Because what we can do is just skip to that part of the document, download those bytes, and render it right away. It also makes it a lot easier to support very large documents. So for example, here in some of our sample files that we have set up, we have a 2 GB file. And with linearized files, what we can do is download the bytes of the first page and then start rendering those right away. So essentially what we can do is rather than downloading the entire file, we can grab just that first page's bytes and render that immediately, rather than waiting for the entire document to download. So that's another way that linearization really helps out. Rather than waiting for this full 2 GB to download, we can start rendering right away that first page's data. Now, with regards to that optional server-side component that can help speed up display, especially for the first few pages of the document, and then hand off to the browser for client-side rendering, that piece is called WebViewer Server, and we have a couple ways of packaging it. We have a Docker image that then you can deploy on Linux, and we also have a Windows-based installer that's built on top of Tomcat. Now, if you'd like to know more about that, I'd recommend going to the guides here. So for WebViewer Server, we have detailed information about the configuration and setup of that component. But I'd encourage you also to try out WebViewer Server running purely client-side. Often that's sufficient for quite performant display of documents. So yeah, I'd recommend trying that out first, and then switching over to trying out viewer optimized documents, or web viewer server, depending on whether or not that purely client-side approach just works for you out of the box. Now, in addition to PDF documents, we also have built-in support for other file types as well. So we can read a variety of image types and bring those up directly inside of the browser. And then here you can work with them just as you would PDF documents. So for example, you can draw shapes and make annotations on top of them. And then what we can do is save this copy and essentially save it as a PDF document. So here, what I've done is downloaded this to my local file system. And if we open it up, we can see here, this has been turned into a PDF copy with an annotation drawn over it. If you wanted to keep this as a what was it originally, a TIFF, I think? If you wanted to keep that as a TIFF, you absolutely could as well. So with our toolkit, we can actually convert PDFs into TIFFs. So if you wanted to change this download button to save it as a TIFF copy or PNG or JPEG, that would be possible as well. So if you had a workflow that was based entirely around image files, but still wanted to give users the ability to annotate these kinds of documents, you could actually support that use case using WebViewer, essentially bringing in an image, showing the PDF copy here inside of the browser, and then converting back into an image when saving. Additionally, we do have support for office types as well. So here inside of the browser, we can directly render docx, pptx, and xlsx documents, converting them on the fly into a PDF copy. Let's bring up a docx here. So yeah, this docx document here can then be interacted with very similar to how one would, a PDF copy. So it's not the same as having an Office render or Office editor. Rather, it's geared towards making annotations on top of the document and filling out any form fields that might be inside of this file. This sort of interface then can be applied to lots of different document types, and you can give a kind of unified UI for end users. So, make it so they only have to really get familiar with a single interface. And then for all of your document types, you can show them inside of WebViewer and give them the ability to annotate on top of documents, fill out forms, and make comments. We also have CAD support as well as support for other kinds of Office file types, and those are through our server-side components. So our native toolkit, PDFTron SDK, or the WebViewer server component, both of those have the built-in ability to convert more Office types. So if you wanted to support DOC files or XLS or PPT, the sort of older binary types, those can be converted into PDF server side through those components, and as well various CAD file types as well. So DWG, DGN, DXF, DWF, and RVT files are ones that we can convert into PDF server side and then show here inside of the browser. For RVT files, which start off as 3D, it's a very similar conversion that you might see when printing the file. So essentially what we're doing is converting to a 2D copy, and then we can show that here inside of the browser. And just as with any other file type, make annotations on top of the document, do form filling, and so on. Recently also, if you're unaware of it, we've also added support for making these same annotations, so essentially using the same kind of UI on top of other file types as well. So we've added in support for opening video files and making annotations on top of them, just as one would over a PDF page. So essentially what we can do is make annotations atop specific frames and then kind of give a range of frames in which that annotation should be shown. Essentially you can collaborate on the document much the same way that you would with WebViewer. And that's true of live HTML as well. So you can load essentially a dynamic HTML page under here and make annotations on top of the content using WebViewer. Now, one thing that you might have seen in that screenshot for video is that whenever I make an annotation with WebViewer, in addition to just drawing that on top of the page, it also implicitly creates a comment thread as well. So here what we've done is, this guest user has highlighted this piece of text, and that's automatically created a comment based on the text that was highlighted. But then what we can do is go in and actually make comments, in sort of a conversational thread anchored around this part of the document. Like someone could say, let's reword this, and post a reply here on this. And then different users can kind of come in and have a whole conversation around that. There's actually another sample here that kind of shows that off a bit better. So let me load that up. Here under annotations, if I go to annotation permissions, what this does is let me sort of toggle between different user contexts. Just a bit about that. So, with WebViewer, we don't have any sort of authentication or anything like that. We don't do any kind of user management or logins or anything like that. What we do is we try to make it as open and flexible as possible so that you can use whatever authentication system you'd like to have users log in and then assign them a sort of username. Here we can actually see a code snippet of what this looks like inside of WebViewer. Basically, after we instantiate the WebViewer object, then afterwards we can just have a line of code that says, hey, this user should be named Justin. And we can set other things as well, like we have the ability to tag different users as being administrators or being read-only users. And what that means is that, so if I have an ordinary user, they can come in and make an annotation on top of a document. So Sally here can go in and add this highlight, and then Sally later can actually edit this same highlight that they made. So Sally can go in and slightly modify that and edit it. But a different user, say Brian here, wouldn't be able to go in and do that. Brian's a read-only user, and so Brian can't make any annotations. Whereas Justin here, Justin can go in, and because Justin is set up as an administrative user, Justin can go and edit anyone else's annotations. So Justin can come in and modify that. Or, Justin can make new annotations as needed. So let me bring in a different highlight here. So here Justin made one, and we can see that Sally is unable to edit Justin's annotation, but is able to edit that one that Sally made previously. Now, once we have these different user contexts, that makes it very interesting to be able to kind of have a conversation anchored around the document. So the Sally user here could kind of solicit input from other people. For example, let's say Sally wanted to reach out to Justin. Well, we support these @ mentions here. So Sally can say @ Justin, please review, and post that. And inside of WebViewer, we have JavaScript callbacks you can hook into so that when someone makes an @ mention of another user, you could do something like automatically reach out to them via email, or maybe add a task within a workflow system. So that's a very easy way to kind of target different comments to different users. And we have APIs so that you can set up your own usernames and who should be allowed to be mentioned from those @ mentions. And another kind of useful way we tie this into workflow is through the use of annotation states. So we have here some default states for this annotation and kind of this whole conversation. And these are the ones that the PDF specification outlines, so accepted, rejected, canceled, completed, etc. These are just the sort of the default values that the PDF spec gives, but we have the ability to customize these as well. And that actually is a pretty powerful tool, because if you have some specific workflow that users should go through, like if you have a particular procedure, maybe even one outlined in regulatory language or something like that, then if you have discrete states that users need to go through, you can encode those within these annotation states. If you think of like a workflow diagram and think of the different states that people are moving between within that kind of graph, then that's the kind of set of states that you could add inside of a custom annotation. And that way you're sort of getting users to drive themselves through that particular workflow. You can even make custom annotations within WebViewer that are tied to those annotation states. So that way you could have, say, a particular highlight that might be a kind of review for a particular piece of regulation, like Sarbanes-Oxley. So you could have a Sarbanes-Oxley highlight, and then whenever somebody makes that highlight, then you'd go through whatever review procedures would be needed for that piece of regulation. And that really leverages WebViewer's customizability, which is another thing that we've really designed WebViewer to shine at. WebViewer is a very highly customizable piece of software. The UI is one that we have high-level interfaces for modifying. So for example, if you wanted to change the theme or do things like remove buttons for download or print or text selection, just to kind of make it a bit more locked down from the end user's point of view. Those are very easy to do. You can see the code snippet associated with that customization down in here. And what we've done is just made a single line of code call for each one of these customizations that we've listed here. Basically, after the WebViewer constructor, we can go in and call these disable element calls to get rid of different buttons or the text selection ability. And just with a single line of code, set the theme to whatever we'd like. And similarly for removing some of these other tools, like let's say we wanted to really slim down the UI to just the few tools that a given user might need, then you could turn off some of these other things. If you wanted to remove page number or the search panel or whatever other functionality you wish, you can quickly remove those. And this is all JavaScript code that's running client side. So that means you can tailor the UI to specific users. So if you want some users to just see a very particular kind of UI that's just a single annotation, you can customize that just for them. And so at login, it will be this kind of streamlined UI that minimizes confusion on their part and is very, very easy to use. Now, if this kind of UI is customization isn't quite enough for you, like maybe there's some deeper kind of changes you'd like to make to the interface, that's quite possible as well. So in our guides, we have some walkthroughs on a lot of different UI customizations, like adding in your own annotations. So if you wanted to make a new kind of custom annotation, we have walkthroughs on doing exactly that. And we have more detailed information on styling and modifying some of these things here in our guides. And additionally, we've actually posted our full UI source code to GitHub. So if there is anything about this UI that you'd like to change around, essentially any of these buttons or toolbars or how the pages are displayed, all of that is controlled by the UI source code that we have on GitHub. So you can actually fork that UI and make it be whatever you'd like. Additionally, if you happen to have an existing user interface, maybe something that you've already developed, that the users are very used to, and you wouldn't want to have to migrate away from, maybe if users are used to some existing solution you might have that renders PDF documents server-side and then sends the rendered images to the browser. If you'd like to instead switch that to client-side rendering, that's something that WebViewer is able to do as well. So essentially in this sample, we're kind of showing that off. What we've done is taken a third-party document displaying toolkit. It's called Turn.js. It's something we downloaded from GitHub. Just a free kind of way of viewing a document that's made up of a bunch of images and displaying them in this kind of turning page interface. And what we did was we put WebViewer's rendering underneath. So really, WebViewer is what's doing this PDF rendering, and it's taking advantage of the accuracy in PDF rendering that we have developed over the last couple of decades, and taking advantage of that client-side rendering that we can do, but showing this in that legacy UI. So that way, for users, if they were very well trained on this interface or whatever interface we're talking about, they wouldn't be destabilized from migrating over to WebViewer, but they would be able to take advantage then of the client-side rendering and additional functionality that's baked into WebViewer, like around PDF manipulation or conversion to other formats, or the ability to add annotations. So it's a very powerful technique for migrating over to WebViewer's UI without destabilizing users. So I'm just going to check on the vote here. So it looks like in terms of the 4 topics that we've sort of discussed within the poll, so real-time collaboration, digital signatures, manipulating PDFs, and UI customization. So it seems like sort of the 2 big ones are manipulating PDFs and UI customization. So we've covered UI quite a bit. So I think I'll move on to how you can go about manipulating PDFs within WebViewer. We talked a bit about adding annotations onto the document. Another thing we can do inside of our viewer is add form fields as well. So, in addition to form filling, doing things like, filling out a given form, maybe extracting values, signing, and so on. We can also build forms as well. So this can be very powerful if you get like say a faxed or scanned document that maybe it is a form, but has fillable areas on the document, but isn't a born digital PDF. In that case, you can actually use WebViewer to add new fields onto those areas. So that way, you can add in a text field or a signature field, and basically save the result as a fillable PDF copy. So here I can actually type in my name into that form field, and we see it behaves just like a regular PDF form field. If I were to download this copy, see that that form field is actually is burned into the document. Actually, it's not shown inside of the default viewer in there, but here I can show it inside of Acrobat. One second here. So unfortunately, that's not launching for me at the moment, but essentially we can burn that into that file directly, and then open that up inside of inside of some other viewer, or save those values directly in and manipulate them with a piece of software. So that's one kind of PDF manipulation that we can do inside of the browser. Another more common one, I think, is the ability to manipulate pages. So it's very common that users might want to be able to do things like rotate a page that maybe came in incorrectly from a fax or a scan, or perhaps do things like delete particular pages from a document, maybe like slimming down a PDF to just sort of a more streamlined, smaller copy that's easier to manage. Oftentimes we hear about the need to move pages around in a document or rearrange things. And as well, we do have the ability to merge different PDF documents together. We have kind of a nice sample for that, actually, here in our WebViewer live samples. If I go into our PDF manipulation one and do launch demo under this, I believe it's this one, thumbnail controls. What we're doing here is bringing up two different WebViewer instances and showing two different documents inside of here. Let me see if I can, there we are. And when we're showing these two different copies, what we can do is actually drag pages from one document to another. So this is a very common use case when users maybe need to consolidate a few different PDFs into kind of a master copy, or perhaps extract particular pages from a slide deck, or consolidate a lot of loan documents into a single copy to send off to a lender. This kind of UI can be very intuitive for them because they can see both copies of the document here, the original one on the left, the one they're building on the right, and they can scroll through and see what the document actually looks like and drag the pages that they need into place. So this is a very easy interface, and one that's quite intuitive for end users. Let's see here. So what I might do is just kind of go into some of the questions here, because I think we've sort of taken a look at kind of the most popular questions or kind of topics, and I think we have quite a few questions being built up here. So let me just kind of start from the top here. So one of the questions was, would we get a recording? And there will be a recording sent after this webinar is over, so that you should automatically get a link to this recording afterwards. But if you do have any questions about anything you saw and would like a review of, you can also feel free to reach out to us directly. For example, if you go here to PDFTron and then support and then resources, if you go to free trial tech support, this actually will send out an email to myself and my team, so we'll get this right away and can reach out and help you directly. Someone was asking about digital signing, and with collaboration, can you specify that the latest version of the approved document, but there are subsequent revisions awaiting approval? So we do have digital signing built into WebViewer. You can digitally sign documents either on a per field basis, or you can also add certification signatures, which kind of aren't tied to any particular signature field, but are sort of around the document as a whole. And we also support e-signatures, which are just the appearance of a signature on the page, and not a true digital signature that you can detect whether a document's been modified after it's been signed. And when you're collaborating between different users, that this is the latest version. So when you're collaborating between users, you could absolutely identify what version the document is. We don't have any notion of versioning inside of WebViewer itself because it's not a document management system. We're not controlling how you store or version your files. So we don't have any check-in or check-out mechanism or anything like that. Really, WebViewer will just download the bytes of the file and bring them up for viewing and editing. And then you can save that edited copy, and then it can upload that to, say, a REST API if you want to save a new copy to that, or you could save the document locally as well. But beyond that, WebViewer takes an agnostic approach by design. So we very much want WebViewer to be usable with whatever backend document management system or storage system you use. So we don't control anything with regards to versioning. But because the WebViewer UI is so customizable, you could absolutely add something to indicate the version number of the document, or when people are collaborating, whether they're looking at the latest version or not. Okay, someone was asking, is it possible to export segments from a PDF or docx and then update those segments after making minor changes back to the document using PDFTron SDK? Yes, and absolutely you can do that. So once you've converted that document into PDF, we can take different parts of another PDF and merge that in as well. And that includes our conversion from docx into PDF. Another question was, how easy would it be to highlight multiple phrases of text programmatically and open the viewer focus to the first highlight? And that would absolutely be doable. So within our UI, we have built-in search capability. Here, this is just showing like an interactive search. So if I search for the word devs, that will find all of them in the document and bring them up in sort of this list here with the ambient text included, so that you can get an idea of the context of each of these searches. And we have options here inside of this UI for case-sensitive searching or whole word searching. And we have a toggle for wildcard as well, but we can actually do full regular expression searching too. And this can absolutely be done programmatically. You could do this on the back end using PDFTron SDK. So if you had a large document repository and you wanted to search for, well, the word devs in each of them, you could absolutely use our toolkit to do that. So we have APIs for searching through the text of a document, and as well we have APIs for just extracting the text of a document. That's pretty useful if you want to send it to something like a full text indexing service that you might have, so that you can kind of Google across all of your documents at once. But another use for that is to search for that term inside of a document, and then you could programmatically add a highlight on top of that document. You could save it into the document, or you could keep it externally to the document as well. So just a bit about how annotations are stored inside of PDFTron's technology. What we do is we take a lot of advantage of a format called XFDF. That's an industry standard format for saving annotations and form field information separate from the underlying PDF. So this way, what you can actually do inside of WebViewer is bring up a PDF document, make highlights on top of it, fill out the forms, and so on, but still leave that PDF copy read-only. And you can take all of those annotations and form field changes and so on, and just export them into this XML-based format, XFDF. And again, this is an industry standard format. It's one that a lot of PDF vendors use. It's actually used inside of Acrobat. You can import and export XFDF inside of that. So it's not something that's proprietary or that would lock you in or anything like that. And so What that would give you the ability to do is, say, if you wanted to programmatically search for text on the back end, you could make up XFDF files based on those searches, and then bring those into WebViewer, as the user wishes. And you can then, based on the location of the annotation, jump to that when WebViewer opens. That same functionality could also be done within WebViewer itself. So if you wanted to not have to leverage a server-side component to do that, but if you wanted to do that client-side instead, you could actually do things like do that searching as the document opens. And we have some samples showing how to do that included with the WebViewer samples. So essentially, you can pre-process a document before loading it up inside of the viewer. And leveraging our full APIs gives you a lot of power with that kind of approach. So with our full APIs, that gives you access to the entire underlying PDF document. So you can access the text inside of the file. Actually, you can traverse at the SDF level if you happen to be familiar with PDF internals. So you can do quite a lot of processing of the file before it even gets loaded inside of the viewer. And the same thing is true when saving as well. So you can customize how saving happens and leverage our full toolkit at that time. So for example, that workflow I was discussing earlier, where you could bring in a TIFF document from your file system, convert it into a PDF on the fly, manipulate it as if it were a PDF, and then resave as a multi-page TIFF. That's exactly how you go about doing it, leveraging this customizing of our save functionality. So another question was about our OCR. PDFTron has server-side OCR technology. So if you have an image document that you wanted to make more searchable, you could perform that OCR server-side and then see and use the searchable copy directly inside of the browser. So we have a demo for that here under our features. So for example, we have this document that is just a scanned copy of this sublease agreement. It's just an image, and if someone had to come in and fill this thing out, it might be a bit tough. It's tough to search here, and just kind of a difficult document to work with. But what we can do is apply the OCR that our toolkit provides, and then turn this into a searchable document. Essentially, what this is doing is sending this image back to our server-side component, and then it's leveraging its OCR add-on to recover the text from that image, and then essentially create a new PDF copy that's made of that original image, and then on top of it, searchable text. So we can see in here now the document has searchable text. It can find all of the instances of the word V and add highlights on top of it. So that's a very useful kind of way of making the document a lot more usable. It's actually one that fits in very well with our redaction capabilities. A lot of times with redaction, one of the easiest ways to go about finding personally identifying or sensitive or confidential information within a document is by text searching for it. And especially regular expressions are useful for this. So for example, if I wanted to search for all phone numbers inside of a document, we have a regular expression here just built into this sample that will search for all phone numbers and add highlights on top of them. Essentially what this is adding is an annotation on top of it, a candidate kind of selection for what we might want to redact from the file to make it something that we could disseminate to a wider audience without revealing this personally identifying information. Here inside of the sample, what we've done is just add these annotations. So in theory, someone could come in and kind of review and approve different redactions from the document. And then when they're ready to actually perform the redaction on the file, they can, here in this sample, click the Supply Redaction button. And what that's doing is actually eradicating that content from underneath that redaction rectangle. This is a much different redaction solution than other vendors often provide. So what some other vendors will do is just apply a black rectangle over this content, but not actually eradicate the content underneath. So that text might still be there. And then, if you bring it up inside of a slow rendering engine, it might show that text briefly before then showing a black rectangle over it. So it's really not a very secure way of hiding personally identifying or sensitive or confidential confidential information. Another technique that some vendors use is they'll just turn the PDF page into a big image and then black out pixels as a way of hiding them. But that has some big disadvantages. One of the biggest being that you lose this searchable, selectable text. So that means that you'd lose accessibility information, and the ability to maybe drive text-to-speech engines so that disabled users can still consume the content. And some of that could be potentially like an ADA violation, or if we're talking about federal documents, then that might be kind of a violation of regulations around accessibility. So that's why we recommend the approach that we take in our redaction of actually fully removing the content without altering other content inside of the document. Another person was asking whether there are any complex examples out there showing the best structure for an interface with WebViewer in React. All the examples I've seen are pretty simple. Yeah, and we definitely keep it pretty simple, as a way of getting started. But if you do have, sort of more complex scenarios, like if you have a particular web page that maybe it's not clear how to integrate WebViewer inside of, please do reach out to us. We do offer full support prior to purchasing WebViewer. We want to make sure that people who want to try out our toolkit, that they're able to do so and don't run into any roadblocks or get stuck with particular questions. If you do have a scenario that it seems like our examples are too simple to apply to, please do feel free to reach out to us, and we'll be happy to take a look at what roadblocks you're running into and see if we can replicate the same thing in-house and maybe help out directly. So again, if you do run into questions like that, the place to go is under support here on our webpage and resources and free trial tech support. So again, this reaches out directly to myself and my team, and we'd be happy to dig into more detail in a kind of one-on-one scenario. Another question, if PDF documents have a drawing, let's say it's originally a CAD file, which was converted to PDF with or without layers, how much of the OCR accuracy will we get? And that really depends on the particular document that you're working with, and the kind of accuracy you'd need. Again, I would encourage you to download our toolkit and try that out directly. So you can try out all of our features immediately without having to license beforehand. So I would advise trying that out with your sample documents. And if you run into any problems or if there is text that you think should be recognized that for some reason our toolkit just isn't, then please feel free to reach out to us and we can see if we can improve that. Another question, can form fields be accessed to change values? For example, setting a default value that can then be changed and saved. And yes, absolutely. So when if you were adding new new form fields onto a document, let me just bring that up again, forms and form build. Yeah, so in here, as we're seeing, if I drag and drop this form field here, we can do a lot of things like set properties about whether it's read-only or multi-line. We can also set in a default value here as well. So I can change maybe the form field name. Instead of saying text, I can maybe just say like first name. Here inside of the value, I could put a default value of Aaron. And then when converting that into an interactive field, that's now the default value on that form field. And it's been given the name that I gave it. Now, once we've brought up a PDF document here within the viewer, we additionally have a lot of programmatic control over filling out values and extracting values. So here what I can do is start filling out this PDF document. Unfortunately, it looks like the text is white, but that's okay. And then when I tab away from it, if you can see that, what's happened is we've added in a bit of custom code just for this web viewer sample. So this is just a kind of demonstration thing that we've added in. What we've done is added in a bit of functionality to go through and programmatically extract the form field values. So after I tab away, that code then runs. And what it's doing is automatically extracting any form fields that are filled out and outputting them as JSON. So here what we've done is we've gone through programmatically, we've found out that there is a field, and this is the name of the field inside of the PDF document. And we found that it has the name, has the value Aaron inside of it. So just the string has been typed into this field. And we've automatically created a new JSON object when the event fired as I tapped away from that field. Again, this is a bit of custom code that's run whenever that event is fired, and it's creating this JSON, and it's just displaying it in here. But what we're trying to show is that you could do anything at that point. So for example, if you had a database in your backend where you had a lot of user information already, let's say that people have been filling out these 1040 forms quite a bit, and maybe I filled out my name and address already, and that's already in some backend database. Well, what you could do then is when that event is fired off, you could go back to that database, look for anyone who has the first name of Aaron, and then maybe do something like add a dropdown here inside of last name. So you could take the different people whose first name is Aaron, take all of their last names, put them in here, and then maybe when I select my last name there, you could go in and pre-populate the rest of the values here using values from your database. So it's a quite powerful mechanism. We definitely give you the ability to add in whatever default values you want, and then when people type in strings or checkboxes or make signatures, you can then trigger your own custom behavior when that happens. Another question, if a PDF document has a drawing, okay, that's the OCR question again. So there was another question, what is the parity and functionality between the PDFTron SDK backend and the capabilities of the web viewer in the front end? Are there manipulations that can only be done in one or the other? So a lot of the code that we've written ourselves and is in our toolkit without leveraging any external components, a lot of those are the things that we can run directly inside of WebViewer. There are some kinds of our functionality that we're not yet able to run directly inside of the browser. Usually that's an issue of just a large amount of JavaScript code being required for that functionality, and that large amount of JavaScript then being a bit too onerous for browsers to run. And you can get a better idea of those kind of platform differences actually here from our licensing information. So if you go to pdftron.com and go along the top here to company and then licensing, if you scroll down, you can actually get to our feature chart here. And what we've done is we've laid out all of our functionality from our different toolkits, and kind of listed them out on a case-by-case basis. So exactly, with our annotation, for example, what exactly that means in terms of the specific kinds of features and use cases you'd be able to support. And so we have that for each of our platforms. So you can kind of get an idea of what's available in each toolkit, what sorts of things are possible. Additionally, when it comes to licensing, our licensing team will often break things down into 3 major use cases of whether you just need to view documents, maybe you need to just view and annotate and form fill, or maybe you actually need low-level manipulation of documents, or merging different documents together, or converting them, and so on. And so we've kind of broken down the functionality into those three basic columns. So you can get an idea of what sorts of things would be included with each kind of scenario. And additionally, we have add-ons for other functionality as well. So like redaction is an add-on, and OCR is an add-on. And basically, this just gives us a way of talking about our functionality for each platform and kind of giving a sort of a language to discuss the licensing with, if you would like to learn more about actually licensing our toolkits. So unfortunately, I don't have any information about licensing because I'm purely on the technical side. But if you would like to learn more, about the actual licensing methods of PDFTron, the contact sales button is the one to press. So we have that up here as well, this link for contact sales. That brings you to this form here, and you can just fill in a bit of information, and that will get you in touch with our sales team, and then they'll have more information about how to go about actually licensing PDFTron SDK. Let's see. Another question was, how reliable and accurate is the server-side PDF conversion, and what file types will it convert? Does it require the original software to be installed, such as Office? And is there a file conversion webinar we can view? So I don't think we've had a full webinar about different file types and conversion and so on. If you would like to learn more about what types we can convert directly in the browser versus what we can convert leveraging server-side tools, that's something that we have here in our WebViewer documentation. So if you go under what is WebViewer, which is sort of the third item. Now, the second item here on our list of guides. So there's getting started, and then underneath is what is WebViewer. And this is a sort of a guide section for kind of high-level ideas about WebViewer, what browsers are supported, what frameworks are compatible with it. And we also have listed out our file format support too. So some kinds of conversion are available just within the client-side browser. Some of them would require a server-side component, like using WebViewer Server or leveraging PDFTron SDK within your own web service. So we have some listings there of what things are available in each. And so, for example, with Office, some file types are ones that we can do purely client-side, because again, we've written that conversion ourselves in-house from the ground up. So that's available both in the client side as well as when you have server-side components leveraged as well. Some of them are added by running our WebViewer server component. And then some of them actually do require, a copy of Office installed. So we do have some types like Pub for which we would require, an Office installation. I believe our MSG conversion is that way as well. Yeah, there are, depending on your file types, sometimes you can get by with a purely client-only setup, and sometimes, you might need a server-side component as well. And the nice thing about having written our own conversion ourselves in-house is that if there are any issues with fidelity or performance or anything, you can reach out to us directly and we can address those ourselves. It's not like you upgrade to a new version of Office and now the way it's converting doc files into PDF is way different, which is an actual thing that has happened with many users of Office. When people leverage Microsoft Office, different versions produce different kinds of documents. So with ours, however, if there are any conversion issues or anything with fidelity or performance, we can address those ourselves in-house. And as well, a great way to try some of this out is through the WebViewer demo. So you can just click Launch Demo here, and then when you click Choose File, you can open up your own local file, or if you have a URL of a document you want to try out, that's possible as well. So feel free to if you have problematic documents or anything like that, you can feel free to upload them and try them, or of course you can always download WebViewer directly, set that up inside of your environment, and try out that conversion yourself. So let's see. I can kind of go through some of the additional chat questions as well here towards the end. So let's see. There was a question, can the PDF be converted to DWG with preserving layers? So we have DWG to PDF conversion, but we do not have, we have DWG to PDF, but not PDF to DWG. PDF is a very low-level format. It's kind of the assembly language of document formats. So yeah, it's a bit of a semantic loss of information converting down into PDF. So in general, most of our conversions are from file types down to PDF. So, and then when the comments are saved, you could save the annotations directly into the PDF copy, or as we showed earlier, you can save them into the XML-based format as well. And those will preserve a kind of annotation history, so that way you can see, what comments have been made and when. Another person was asking about page imposition in the browser. So yeah, I think we saw page manipulation, but imposition is supported as well. We can absolutely take one PDF page and scale it down and place it onto another PDF page. We actually have a high-level API for that called Stamper, which has a stamp page method that makes that very easy. So you can scale and rotate the page and place it onto another PDF page. And you can do things like create a new PDF page from scratch, as a canvas to put others onto. Let's see. Despeckling and removing of noise isn't something we have. So that's more of an image manipulation toolkit kind of functionality. So we're really more around converting between different file types and especially around rendering them and using them and so on. But someone was also asking about reducing the file size without reducing image quality. And our optimization can do that. So we have two kinds of optimization. We have viewer optimization that makes the document easier to render in browser, but we also have sort of file optimization as well that basically takes high resolution images inside of a PDF and can downsample them based on your settings. And it can do other kinds of optimization as well, like subset embedded fonts or remove duplicate objects. So I'm getting the signal that we should be wrapping things up. So yeah, anything else we can we'll address again afterwards. So yeah, please feel free to reach out to us, with any additional questions you might have. Again, please feel free to reach out on the free trial support, and feel free to download WebViewer and try it out for yourself. And yeah, we're happy to help with any questions or roadblocks you might run into. So thanks so much for attending today. Really appreciate it. Have a great day.